The bat cracked against my knuckles like a thunderclap, sending a jolt of white-hot pain up my arm that made my vision blur. But it was nothing compared to the shatter in my chest when I saw them. My stepfather, Hank, with his calloused hands lingering too long on Jake's waist, whispering something that made my best friend blush under the garage's harsh fluorescent light. I dropped the glove I'd been clutching, the leather hitting the oil-stained concrete with a thud that echoed louder than my heartbeat. And in that split second, the world tilted. Hank's eyes met mine, not with the gruff authority I'd known for a decade, but with a vulnerability that cracked open secrets I'd never suspected. "Alex!" Jake's voice broke the silence, raw and pleading, as he stepped back from Hank, but it was too late. The image burned into me like a brand, twisting friendship, family, and something dangerously close to desire into a knot I couldn't untie. That moment in the garage replayed in my head like a glitchy film reel as I stumbled back into the humid July evening of our cul-de-sac in Elmwood Heights, Ohio. A slice of middle American perfection with its manicured lawns and American flags fluttering from porches like promises of normalcy. I was 22, fresh out of community college with a half-baked graphic design degree and a summer job slinging burgers at Dino's Drive-In, dreaming of escaping to the buzz of Chicago or New York where a guy like me might blend into the crowd without the weight of small-town stares. Growing up gay in Elmwood wasn't a death sentence, but it felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of polite indifference. My mom had married Hank when I was 12, after Dad bailed for a fresh start in Florida with his secretary. Hank was the steady type. Ex-Marine, high school baseball coach, with a jaw like carved granite and eyes that could pin you in place during a heart-to-heart. He wasn't cruel, just distant, like he was coaching me through life from the dugout, never quite stepping up to the plate. Jake was my anchor. We'd been thick as thieves since kindergarten, him with his easy grin and quarterback build, me the skinny artist kid who sketched superheroes in the margins of our notebooks. He was straight, or so I'd convinced myself, dating cheerleaders like it was his civic duty while I nursed crushes in silence. But lately, something had shifted. Jake had been crashing at our place more, dodging questions about his folks' endless fights, and Hank had taken him under his wing. Extra batting practice in the backyard, late-night talks over beers on the porch that left me feeling like the odd man out. I didn't mean to spy. I'd come home early from my shift, the scent of fryer grease clinging to my skin like regret, hoping for a quiet night with my sketchpad and some indie playlists to drown out the ache. The garage door was ajar, spilling light onto the driveway, and I heard Hank's low rumble first. "It's not about the swing, Jake. It's about trust. Letting go of the fear." Then Jake's laugh, softer than I'd ever heard it, followed by a pause that stretched too long. Curiosity pulled me closer, and that's when I pushed the door open. They were inches apart, Hank's hand steady on Jake's hip as he adjusted his stance at the batting tee. But it wasn't the mechanics that stopped my breath. It was the way Jake leaned into it, eyes half-lidded, and Hank's thumb brushing just a fraction too intimately, like he'd done it 100 times in dreams neither would admit. Hank pulled back first, clearing his throat, but the air hummed with unspoken electricity. And then they saw me. "Alex, kid. It's not." Hank started, his voice gravelly, face flushing under the stubble. Jake's eyes widened, a mix of guilt and desperation flashing across his features. I bolted, not dramatically, like in the movies, no slamming doors or shouted accusations. Just turned and walked, fast, into the house, up the stairs to my room, slamming that door instead. I collapsed onto the bed, heart hammering, the pain in my hand a dull throb from where I'd gripped the bat too tight earlier. What the hell had I just seen? Coaching? Yeah, right. That was more like foreplay. The thought twisted in my gut, jealousy flaring hot and irrational. Jealous of what? Hank, for touching Jake like that? Or Jake, for getting that look from a man who'd never once hugged me without it feeling obligatory? Downstairs, I heard the murmur of voices. Hank's deep timbre, Jake's lighter one, laced with apology. Mom was at her night shift at the hospital, oblivious as ever. I pressed my ear to the door, hating myself for it, catching fragments. Not just helping him, Alex doesn't understand. And Jake's fierce whisper. He saw too much, Hank. What if he tells? Tells what? That my stepdad had a thing for my best friend? That Jake, Mr. Straight and Narrow, was leaning into it? The betrayal stung deeper than the surprise. Jake knew me. Knew the nights I'd confessed my loneliness over stolen sips of whiskey, how I'd sketched his profile in secret, pages I'd burned last year to kill the crush. If he was hiding this, what else? Sleep didn't come. By dawn, I'd convinced myself it was a fluke, some macho bonding ritual I was overreading through my queer-tinted glasses. But when Jake texted at 7 a.m., "Hey man, can we talk? Coffee at the diner?" I knew evasion wouldn't cut it. I showered, the hot water scalding away the grease but not the confusion, and met him at Millie's, our spot since high school, where the coffee was burnt and the pancakes drowned in syrup like everything good in Elmwood. He slid into the booth across from me, looking wrecked, dark circles under his hazel eyes, hair uncombed. "Alex, last night. Shit. I don't even know where to start." "Start with why my stepdad's hands were all over you," I said, voice steadier than I felt. The waitress hovered, pouring refills, and I waited until she left to add, "Like you're his prize pupil in More Than Baseball." Jake winced, rubbing his neck. "It's not like that. Hank's been helping me figure stuff out. My parents, the pressure to enlist like dad wants, the whole man-up bullshit. He gets it. And yeah, maybe it's gotten intense, but it's not." "Intense how?" I cut in, leaning forward. The diner buzzed around us. Truckers laughing at the counter, a family arguing over eggs, but it felt like we were in a bubble, fragile and about to pop. He hesitated, then sighed. "I'm not as straight as I thought. Okay? Been questioning it for months." Hank noticed. He didn't push, just talked. Shared his own stories from the Marines, guys he lost touch with. "Last night was just practice, but it felt real. Like I could breathe." The words landed like punches. "Hank?" Questioning. "The man who taught me to throw a curveball, who grilled burgers at block parties with a beer in hand and a joke about the Browns. Gay? Bi? And Jake? My Jake." Stepping into that space, I forced a nod, but inside, the knot tightened. "So you two are, what, hooking up behind my back?" "No. God. Alex, no. It's emotional. Support. You're my best friend. I'd never." He reached across the table, hand hovering over mine, and for a wild second, I wanted to grab it, to claim what I'd imagined in fevered dreams. But I pulled back. Support from my stepdad, while I'm right under the same roof. Feels like betrayal, Jake. His face crumpled. "I know. I'm sorry. But don't hate me. Or him." I didn't hate them. Not yet. But as we parted with awkward hugs and promises to talk later, the seed of doubt took root. That afternoon, I confronted Hank in the garage, the tea still set up like a mocking altar. He was wiping down bats, broad shoulders tense under his faded Indian's tee. "Saw you watching, son. Figured you'd come at me swinging." "Son," I echoed bitter. "That's rich. What's going on with Jake?" Hank set the bat down, meeting my gaze square. "Helping a kid who's lost, Alex. Same as I tried with you." "Tried?" The word stung. "You mean the lectures on toughening up? Or ignoring the pride flag I hung last Pride Month?" He flinched, and for the first time, I saw cracks in the armor, regret etching lines around his eyes. "I wasn't ready. My own shit. After the service, I buried a lot. Men I cared for more than brothers. Came home, married your mom to fit the mold. But Jake, he reminds me of that honesty I lost." The confession hung heavy, pulling me into his orbit despite myself. "So you're out to him?" "Not out. Just real." "And Alex, if you're thinking this changes us." "It does," I interrupted, voice cracking. "Because now I see you, and him, and me, stuck in the middle." We stood there, the garage a confessional under the summer sun slanting through the window. Hank stepped closer, not touching, but close enough I smelled his aftershave. Pine and leather, familiar as home. "You're not stuck, kid. You're the strongest of us. Always were." His words unlocked something, a flicker of understanding, maybe even forgiveness. But as he clapped my shoulder, firm and paternal, I felt the undercurrent, the unspoken pull. Was it jealousy? Or was it the start of seeing myself reflected in them? The next weeks blurred into a tense détente. Jake and I patched things with late-night drives down Route 42, windows down, radio blasting Springsteen anthems about broken highways and haunted hearts. He'd talk in circles, about the fear of coming out in a town where the local paper still ran op-eds on traditional values, about how Hank's stories made him feel less like a fraud. I'd listen, sketching in my notebook, Jake's profile against the dashboard glow, Hank's silhouette in the garage, my own hands clenched on the wheel. The drawings turned romantic despite myself, soft lines where edges used to be, shadows hinting at embraces. One night, after a bonfire at the quarry with our old crew, Jake kissed me. Or I kissed him. We were drunk on cheap beer and nostalgia, stars wheeling overhead like conspirators. It was clumsy, tasting of hops and hesitation, but when he didn't pull away, fire raced through me. "Alex," he murmured against my lips. "I've been blind." We tumbled into the back seat of my beat-up Civic, not crossing lines but mapping them. Hands exploring shirts, breaths mingling in confessions. "Hank made me see it," he admitted later, head on my chest. "That it's okay to want this. With you." The thrill soured fast. Guilt gnawed at me, Hank's vulnerability replaying like a warning. Was I stealing his moment? Or was this the universe's cruel joke, dangling Jake as my reward for silence? Betrayal came swift, on a sweltering August afternoon. I'd come home from a shift to find the house empty. Mom at work, but Jake's truck in the drive. Upstairs, the guest room door cracked open, and there they were, not touching, but closer than friends. Hank on the edge of the bed, Jake pacing, voices low and urgent. "Doc can't keep pretending," Jake was saying. "With Alex, it's real, but you started this." Hank's reply was a gut punch. "I know, but he's family, Jake. My stepson. What we have, it's a bridge, not the destination. Let it be that." I froze in the hallway, eavesdropping like a ghost. A bridge? To what, me? The implication hit. Hank had seen the spark between Jake and me before I did, nudged it along like one of his coaching plays. But hearing it laid bare felt like theft, like my emotions were pawns in their game. I burst in fury eclipsing shock. "A bridge? You set this up?" Played matchmaker while playing. "What?" The tortured mentor. They sprang apart, faces paling. "Alex, no," Jake stammered. Hank stood, hands raised. "Listen, kid. I saw how you looked at him. Years ago. Wanted to give you a shot without the baggage I carry." "Baggage?" I laughed, hollow. "Like being queer in a house that pretends it's not? You think orchestrating this fixes that?" "It's not orchestration," Hank growled, stepping forward. "It's love. Messy, American dream-busted love. I pushed Jake your way because you're the one who deserves the home run." The room spun. Love. The word from him, raw, unfiltered, cracked my defenses. Jake reached for me, eyes pleading, but I shrugged him off. "You both lied. By omission. That's betrayal." I stormed out, driving aimlessly until the tank ran dry outside Kenton, crashing at a motel with a flickering neon sign that buzzed like my thoughts. There, in the stale air, I called Mom. Not for details, but for anchor. "I need you home. Family meeting." She arrived at dawn, bleary-eyed, piecing together my fractured story over coffee. Hank joined quietly, Jake trailing like a shadow. The living room felt like a courtroom. Mom on the couch, me pacing, the men seated like accused. "It's all out now," I started, voice steady. "Hank, you're gay or bi, whatever." Jake's figuring it. "And me? I've been in love with him forever. But this feels rigged." Mom's hand found mine, warm and sure. "Rigged? Or guided?" "Hank's not perfect, but he's tried. In his way." Hank nodded, eyes on the carpet. "I have. Failed you both, maybe. But Alex, seeing you too. It's redemption. For the dad I couldn't be." Jake spoke then, voice breaking. "I didn't see it coming with you. But I want it. If you'll have me. Us." The climax crested not in shouts, but tears. Hank's first, silent tracks down his cheeks. Then mine, Mom pulling us into a huddle that smelled of coffee and forgiveness. No grand gestures, just the quiet unraveling of walls built from fear. We didn't fix it overnight. Therapy followed. Group sessions in Toledo where Midwestern accents confessed sins under fluorescent hums. Jake and I dated, tentative. Picnics by the river, sketches turned tattoos on his arm, my lines etched into his skin. Hank came out to the team, lost a few parents' support but gained quiet allies. Mom stood firm, her love the glue. By fall, as leaves turned crimson, the garage became neutral ground. Not for secrets, but stories. We'd bat around balls and truths. Hank's coaching now inclusive. Swing from the heart, boys. That's where the power is. I didn't believe in easy endings. Not in America where dreams crack under pressure. But in those moments, Jake's hand in mine, Hank's approving nod. I found humanism in the mess. Love not as conquest, but connection. Betrayal forged into bridges we crossed together. Fall deepened Elmwood's charm into something almost magical. The air crisp with the scent of bonfires and distant rain. But for me, it was a season of fragile rebuilds. Jake and I navigated our new rhythm like freshmen at a school dance. Awkward steps, stolen glances, the thrill of his fingers lacing through mine under the diner table. Our first real date was at the county fair. Amid the chaos of cotton candy clouds and Ferris wheel lights blinking against the twilight sky. He won me a stuffed bear at the ring toss, its fur ridiculous and endearing. And as we rode the tilt-a-whirl, his head on my shoulder, I whispered, "This feels like cheating fate." He chuckled, breath warm on my neck. Or rewriting it. With you. Back home, Hank kept his distance at first, respectful nods in the kitchen, offers to grab us sodas during movie nights. But the undercurrent lingered, a subtle tension like static before a storm. One evening, as Jake and I sprawled on the living room rug sketching logos for his fledgling landscaping side gig, Hank wandered in with a six-pack and that old baseball mitt. "Room for one more?" he asked, voice gruff but eyes hopeful. Jake glanced at me, and I nodded, the gesture small but seismic. We played catch in the backyard until dusk swallowed us. The thwack of leather a metronome to our halting conversation. Hank tossed me the ball gently. "Missed this kid. With you." "Me too," I admitted, the words foreign on my tongue. "But no more secrets. Deal?" "Deal." His throw came firmer, testing. Jake fielded it, grinning like we'd conquered worlds. Mom watched from the porch, her smile a quiet victory. She'd always been the heart of us. Nurse by trade, healer by nature, turning wounds into wisdom without fanfare. That night, over her famous lasagna, she steered us into deeper waters. Families aren't born perfect. They're forged. And ours? It's got some sharp edges. But look at the shine. Her words stuck as October chilled into November, bringing Thanksgiving and its obligatory gatherings. Elmwood's community center buzzed with turkey and small talk. But for Hank, it was a gauntlet. Whispers followed him. Coaches who'd clapped his back now averting eyes. Parents who'd once begged for his advice now crossing the street. He'd come out quietly, first to the principal, then a letter in the local gazette. "I've coached boys to men, hiding parts of myself. No more. Integrity starts at home plate." The backlash was polite Midwestern venom. Boycotts to games, emails laced with Bible verses. Jake and I rallied, showing up to practices with signs. "Coach Hank. Elmwood's MVP." It wasn't much, but it drew a few allies. The art teacher who'd mentored me, a couple of players who'd confided their own questions. One frosty morning, after a particularly brutal email barrage, I found Hank in the garage, staring at the batting tee like it mocked him. "They'll come around," I said, sliding onto a workbench. "Or they won't. But you've got us." He looked up, eyes red-rimmed. "Us? Yeah. Never thought I'd hear that from you." We talked then, really talked, for the first time. About his Marine days in the Gulf, buddies lost to more than war. The unspoken grief of love severed by don't-ask regulations. "Loved a corpseman once," he confessed, voice low. "Wrote letters after, but fear won. Came home, built this life. Your mom, she's my rock. But you, Alex, you're my mirror." The vulnerability floored me. "I thought you saw me as the weak link, the artsy kid who didn't fit." Hank shook his head. "Strongest swing I ever saw. Just needed the right pitch." Jake joined us later, fresh from a jog, sweat-damp tea clinging in ways that still made my pulse stutter. The three of us shared the space, not as rivals or mentors, but equals. Laughing over old photos, Hank pulling out a dusty album with pictures of a younger him. Arms slung around a soldier with my same crooked smile. As winter loomed, romance with Jake blossomed in stolen pockets. Midnight drives to the quarry, where we'd lie on blankets and trace constellations, his stories weaving with mine into tapestries of what-ifs. "Remember that summer camp?" he'd say, fingers drawing patterns on my palm. "You sketched me as a knight. I kept it hidden in my drawer." Heat flushed my cheeks. "Thought you tossed it." "Never. It was my first clue how you saw me. Brave when I felt anything but." Our intimacy grew tender, exploratory. Kisses that lingered like symphonies, bodies aligning in trust rather than haste. No rush to labels. Just us, building something authentic in a town that prized facades. But conflict simmered beneath the snow. Jake's parents, the Hargroves, were Elmwood royalty. Dad a realtor with a handshake like a vice, Mom the church auxiliary queen. They'd sensed his distance, the skipped family dinners, and cornered him one December eve. I waited in the truck as he went in, nerves fraying like old rope. He emerged an hour later, face ashen, sliding into the passenger seat with a duffel. They guessed. About us. Dad called it a phase, Mom cried scripture. Said if I choose this, I'm out. The words chilled deeper than the wind. Choose? Like it's a multiple-choice test. He leaned his head back, eyes closing. I told them it's not a choice. It's me. They need time. We drove to my place in silence, the radio murmuring carols that mocked our ache. Hank met us at the door, reading the room instantly. Spare room's yours, son. As long as it takes. That night, as Jake showered away the confrontation, Hank pulled me aside. He's scared, Alex. Like I was. Don't let it break you too. I'm not the one breaking. I snapped, then softened. What if they never accept? Then we make our own family. His hand on my shoulder was steady. A vow. Christmas came wrapped in tension and tinsel. Mom strung lights with forced cheer, baking pies that filled the house with cinnamon warmth. Jake's gift to me was a leather-bound sketchbook, pages already inked with our initials intertwined. I gave him a pendant, a silver baseball with a heart etched inside. Hank surprised us with tickets to a Cavs game in Cleveland, a day trip of hot dogs and halftime hugs, where he bought us foam fingers and yelled cheers until his voice cracked. But the Hargroves' shadow loomed. New Year's Eve. A knock shattered our quiet countdown. Jake's dad stood on the porch, coat dusted with flurries, face carved from regret. Son, we talked, your mother and I. This isn't easy, but we love you, even if we don't understand. Jake froze in the doorway, me hovering behind. Understand what, Dad? That I'm happy. Mr. Hargrove's eyes flicked to me, then Hank, piecing the puzzle. All of it. The coach too. Small town word travels. But family's family. It wasn't absolution, just a crack in the ice. Jake hugged him stiffly, promises exchanged over eggnog later, when Mrs. Hargrove arrived with a tentative fruitcake. Progress, Elmwood style. Slow, syrupy, but real. Spring thawed the ground and our guards. Jake moved back home but stayed woven into ours. Weekend barbecues where Hank grilled with flair, Mom's laughter mingling with Jake's as they danced in the kitchen to Motown on the old radio. My designs landed a freelance gig for the local brewery, labels with bold colors that hinted at hidden depths, much like us. Yet climax brewed in subtle storms. A school board meeting in April turned ugly. Protests against Hank's agenda, petitions to oust him. We attended en masse, holding signs in the humid gym. Love wins on the field. Jake spoke, voice steady. Coach Hank taught me to stand tall, taught Alex to swing true. That's the lesson Elmwood needs. The vote went against him 5-4. Hank packed his office the next day, whistle and clipboard in hand. But his chin was high. Not the end, just extra innings. That night, betrayal's echo resurfaced. Not from Hank, but within. Jake confessed over porch beers, stars pricking the sky. I almost bailed after the meeting. Thought running would fix it. But you're my why. I pulled him close, heart sinking. And you're mine. No more bridges. Just the road ahead. Summer circled back, full of green promise. The garage echoed with new routines. Jake and I coaching little league together, Hank umpiring with impartial gruffness. Romance deepened. Proposals whispered in dawn light. Rings exchanged in a courthouse ceremony that felt like defiance and destiny. In the end, it wasn't happily ever after, but humanly so. Scars that told stories. Loves that bent but didn't break. Elmwood watched, some with nods, others with shrugs, but we walked our path. Stepfather, friend, lover, bound by the swing of truth. The sting of Hank's dismissal faded into a dull ache by Memorial Day. Elmwood's parades marching on with brass bands and flags snapping in the breeze. A reminder that life in America churned forward, resilient or oblivious. Hank threw himself into odd jobs. Fixing fences for neighbors who'd secretly rooted for him. Volunteering at the rec center to coach pickup games for the kids who'd lost their diamond anchor. Keeps the rust off, he'd say with a wink. But I saw the hollow in his eyes when he thought no one watched. Jake and I, meanwhile, leaned into our bubble. With my freelance work picking up, labels for craft beers that shipped as far as Pittsburgh. We splurged on a weekend in Columbus, crashing at a kitschy B&B with clawfoot tubs and breakfasts heavy on bacon. It was our first taste of anonymity, holding hands on High Street without the prickle of stairs, laughing over bad karaoke at a dive bar where the drag queens crowned Jake Rookie of the Year for his enthusiastic twerk. Lying tangled in sheets that smelled of lavender, Jake traced the tattoo on my forearm, the baseball heart I'd inked after his pendant. "This is us," he murmured. "Permanent. Like Elmwood." I teased, but his kiss silenced doubts, deep and affirming, bodies moving in a rhythm honed by months of patience. Back home, cracks showed. Jake's parents thawed unevenly. Dinners where Mr. Hargrove grilled steaks and probed about future plans. Mrs. Hargrove slipping Bible tracts under napkins like guilty pleasures. Jake bore it with grace, but tension coiled in his shoulders. "They want grandkids," he confided one night. Rain pattering the trailer roof where we'd escaped for privacy. "Like I'm a project." "You're not," I said fiercely, pulling him against me. "You're the plot twist." Hank noticed, of course. Over a father-son lunch at Dino's. Ironic, me in my old uniform slinging his patty melt. He broached it. "Jake's carrying weight. You too solid." "As a rock," I replied, but hesitated. "He's scared of losing them. Like you did, maybe?" Hank's fork paused midair. "Lost my folks young. Or took dad, mom to cancer. Built walls after. Don't let him do that." The advice lingered as June bloomed sticky and sweet. My portfolio grew, a gallery show in Dayton beckoning. A chance to step beyond Elmwood's borders. Jake cheered loudest, framing prints for the wall, but doubt flickered. "What if you outgrow this? Us?" "Never," I vowed, but the seed planted. Betrayal's ghost whispered. What if freedom meant leaving him behind? The real storm hit in July, heat wave mirage shimmering the streets. A letter arrived for Hank, certified, from the school district. A settlement offer, hush money disguised as severance. With a gag clause to bury his story. He showed it to us over dinner, paper crinkling like old bones. "They're buying silence," Mom said, furious. "After ruining you." Hank shrugged, but his jaw tightened. "Money's nice. Buys time to start over." Jake exploded. "Start over? Here? They can't erase you." The argument spilled into the yard, fireflies winking like witnesses. "It's not erasure," Hank countered. "It's survival. For all of us." "You taught me that?" Jake shot back. "To fold." I mediated, heart pounding. "He's right, Jake. But so are you. We fight smart." That night, Jake and I walked the tracks behind the house, rails humming underfoot. "Feels like betrayal," he admitted. "Him giving in. Or protecting," I countered. "Like he did for us." We kissed under the moon, fierce and forgiving, but the rift lingered. August brought the gallery opening. Neon lights in a converted warehouse, wine flowing like Ohio River currents. My pieces hung proud. Abstracts of gloves and bats, Hearts hidden in stitches, titles like Extra Innings and Foul Lines. Jake stood beaming, hand in mine, as strangers murmured approval. Hank and Mom arrived late, him in a button-down that strained at the shoulders, her arm looped through his. Proud as hell, Hank rumbled, clinking plastic cups. This is your home run, Alex. A collector bought 3 pieces on the spot, check in hand feeling like wings. But elation crashed when Jake pulled me aside, face stormy. Dad called. They're selling the house, moving to Florida. Fresh start, they said. Without me. The words hollowed me. Because of us? Partly. Mostly their fear. He deflated against the brick wall. I can't lose you too. You won't. But as we drove home, silence thick as fog, I wondered if love was enough against tides pulling us apart. Conflict peaked in September, leaves turning trader gold. Jake's parents finalized the sale, a for sale sign stabbing the Hargrove lawn like a wound. He packed his truck one afternoon, duffel slung over, eyes defiant. Staying with you, full time, if that's okay. Hank overheard from the garage, stepping out with a nod. Doors open, son. Always. But Jake's voice cracked. What about your settlement? Hiding. Hank's face hardened. Decided against it. Talking to a lawyer instead. Sue for discrimination. Make noise. The shift stunned us. Why now? I asked. Because of you too. Showing me silence ain't golden. He clapped Jake's back, then mine. A bridge mended in muscle memory. We celebrated with pizza on the porch. Mom toasting with lemonade. To loud love. Fall deepened, trials looming. The lawsuit filed. Headlines in the Gazette. Ex-coach sues for bias. Backlash roared. Picketers at the diner. My boss muttering about drama. Jake stood firm, weeding our garden plot with therapeutic fury, planting bulbs for spring defiance. Romance anchored us. Anniversaries marked with mixtapes, Jake's playlists blending Bon Iver ballads with Outcast anthems. Our dances in the kitchen sloppy and joyous. Intimacy evolved. Nights where words failed. Bodies spoke volumes of trust, touches mapping scars into stars. Yet climax crested raw. Court date in October. County courthouse, a hive of suits and stares. Hank testified, voice steady. I coached with heart. They fired my truth. Jake gripped my hand in the gallery, knuckles white as verdicts loomed. The judge ruled partial, back pay, no gag, a quiet win. Outside, reporters swarmed, but Hank waved them off. Just justice. For the next kid. Jake hugged him fierce. You did it. We did. Winter whispered redemption. Snow blanketed Elmwood, softening edges. Jake and I adopted a rescue mutt, Buster, who bounded through drifts like joy incarnate. Hank started a community league, queer-inclusive, open fields for all swings. Betrayal's embers cooled into wisdom. Love's not linear, but layered. In our home, forged from fractures, we found humanism. Flawed, fierce, forever American. Winter's grip on Elmwood loosened grudgingly into a muddy march. The kind where boots squelch and optimism peeks through like crocuses pushing soil. Hank's league took root in the rec fields. Mismatched teams of teens and 20-somethings, straight and queer mingling under his whistle, learning curves not just in pitches but perspectives. It's about the game, he'd bark during drills, and the guts to play it true. Jake umpired weekends, his calls fair and firm, while I designed tees. Bold graphics of interlocking bats forming infinity loops, slogans like, swing your truth. The payout from the suit bought Hank a used truck, rusted blue, reliable as his resolve, and funded our first group trip. A cabin in Hocking Hills, Ohio's forested heart. Mom packed coolers with chili and cornbread, her laughter echoing as we hiked trails slick with melt. Jake and I stole moments by waterfalls, mist kissing our skin as we kissed, promises sealed in spray. This is forever, he said, ring glinting on his finger from our winter courthouse vows. Simple bands, engraved with Team Us. Hank caught us once, mid-embrace on a ledge, and cleared his throat with mock sternness. Save some romance for the birds. But his eyes twinkled, approval deep as roots. Back in Elmwood, normalcy wove in wonders. My art career budded. A commission for the Cincinnati Reds Pride Night banner, colors exploding like fireworks. Jake's landscaping bloomed, too. He'd parlayed Hank's old contacts into contracts, turning backyards into sanctuaries. Evenings, we'd collapse on the couch, Buster snoring at our feet, trading stories of the day over takeout lo mein. Mom's health scare hit like a rogue curveball. A routine check uncovering early arthritis. Nothing fatal but enough to sideline her shifts. We rallied. Hank cooking breakfasts with surprising finesse, pancakes fluffy as clouds, Jake massaging her hands with essential oils, me illustrating a journal for her thoughts. Nurse notes. The human side. Her resilience shined, turning pain into pep talks. Bodies break, but spirits? Unbreakable. Spring unfurled riots of color, cherry blossoms dusting streets like confetti. Jake's parents visited. Awkward at first, potluck casseroles as peace offerings. Over Easter ham, Mr. Hargrove admitted. Watched the trial on local news. Proud of you, son. And Alex. Mrs. Hargrove hugged me tentative, whispering, Love's a leap. You're welcome here. Tears pricked Jake's eyes. Mine too. Bridges, indeed. But conflict stirred in summer's simmer. A rival coach, bitter ex-colleague of Hank's, stirred mud in the league, anonymous flyers decrying indoctrination. Games disrupted by hecklers with signs like, Keep Christ in baseball. Tensions peaked at a July 4th tourney, fireworks literal and figurative. Mid-inning, a father charged the field, yelling slurs at a queer player Hank defended. Enough! Hank roared, stepping between. This field's for fair play. Take your hate off it. The man swung. A wild haymaker Hank ducked, but the crowd surged. Jake and I waded in, pulling Hank back as cops dispersed the chaos. Bruised but unbroken, we retreated to the truck, adrenaline crashing into silence. That could have gone south, Jake muttered, bandaging a cut on Hank's knuckles. Went south years ago, Hank replied. Just naming it now. The incident made papers. Elmwood League stands against bigotry. Drawing supporters nationwide, donations flooding for gear. But personally, it cracked Jake. That night, under star-spangled skies, he confessed by the quarry. Seeing that hate scares me. What if it touches us? Kids? Someday? I held him as crickets chorused. It will, but we'll face it. Like Hank. Like us. Romance reignited in defiance. A vow renewal at dawn. Just us four on the porch, Mom officiating with a stole borrowed from church. Jake's eyes locked on mine, words simple. Through fouls and fair, I choose you. August brought heat and harvest. My Reds banner unveiled to cheers, Hank tossing the ceremonial first pitch, crooked but heartfelt. Jake proposed expanding the business, a queer-owned outfit, Hargrove and Hale Landscapes, growing strong. Betrayal's final echo came subtle. A letter from Dad, my bio one, postmarked Florida. Heard about the family drama. Proud you're standing up. Visit sometime. Enclosed photo, him with a younger wife, grandkids grinning. Guilt twisted. Had I written him off too quick? I shared it at dinner, table quiet. Hank nodded. Blood's one tie. Choice makes family. I wrote back, tentative olive branch, but roots stayed here. Falls crescendo. League playoffs under harvest moons, fields alive with cheers. Our team, Ragtag Rebels, clinched the title, Hank hoisting the trophy with a whoop that echoed souls. Post-game bonfire, stories swirled. Players coming out, parents applauding. Jake and I danced slow, firelight gilding us, whispers of futures. Adoptions, road trips, art shows in the city. Mom's journal published locally, a bestseller in Elmwood's library. Tales of healing hands and hidden hearts. Hank contributed a foreword. Coaching life's the real MVP. Climax resolved not in thunder, but glow. A winter gala for the league. Black ties in the VFW hall. Toasts to resilience. Hank danced with Mom, Jake with me, then switched. Stepdad and stepson swaying awkward, laughing through steps. Love you, kid, he murmured. You too, coach. Humanism bloomed. In apologies unspoken, hands extended, loves layered like autumn leaves. Elmwood, America, flawed fields, but ours to till. As the year wheeled into crisp resolve, Elmwood settled into a rhythm tempered by trials. A town not transformed, but tilted toward tolerance, one conversation at a time. Hank's league expanded, drawing kids from neighboring counties, fields buzzing with diverse dreams under his watchful eye. Everyone gets a turn at bat, he'd declare, and they did, swings wild but celebrated. Jake and I dove deeper into partnership, Hargrove and Hale turning lawns into legacies. Native pollinator gardens for eco-moms, rainbow stone paths for pride allies. Weekends blurred into work and wonder. Loading trucks at dawn, evenings sketching designs by lamplight, Buster chasing fireflies as we stole kisses in the dirt. Our home, a fixer-upper bungalow on the edge of town, became canvas. Walls splashed with my murals, shelves lined with Jake's pressed wildflowers. Mom's arthritis steadied with PT and pills. Her shifts lighter but her spirit fierce. She started a support group at the hospital, Hearts Uncharted, for families navigating identities. Hank guest speaking on Fielding the Unknown. Dad visited once. Awkward golf with Hank. Barbecue chats where old wounds scarred over. "You're good here," he said, hugging me goodbye. Closure, bittersweet. Spring 2027 bloomed buoyant, cherry festivals and first warm rains. My art hit a stride, solo show in Cleveland, pieces sold to collectors who saw the American queer odyssey in my lines. Jake surprised me opening night, bouquet of wild asters in hand, whispering, "My artist's muse." But life's curve came gentle. Jake's proposal for kids, adoption papers inked after seminars on building blended families. We fostered first, a scrappy terrier mix, then I'd older siblings, hearts set on giving what we'd craved, unconditional at-bats. Summer solstice brought ceremony, a backyard wedding redo, friends and family under string lights. Hank walked me down the aisle, a petal-strewn path, Mom beaming, Jake vows vowing. In every inning, you're my all-star. Rings renewed, cakes smashed with glee, dances till dew fell. Hank's toast choked us. Coached a lot of swings, none truer than yours. To love, that grand slam. Fall harvested abundance, league championships, business booming, Mom's book sequel in works. Yet humanism's core shone in quiet. Hank's annual letter to his lost marine love, read aloud to us by the fire, tears cathartic. Jake's parents hosting Thanksgiving, grandkids hypothetical but hugs real. Winter wrapped us warm, snow sculpting Elmwood anew. New Year's, porchside, champagne fizzing, we reflected. Betrayals bridged, conflicts conquered, emotions etched eternal. No fairy tale finale, just forward, flawed, full-hearted. In America's heartland, we played on lovers, family, forever swinging true.